probation, he didn't make probation. But there would be a number of people in this room that would like to complain, but none of them want to get the blacklisting of having been a complainant. I was going to bring my hat that has a white stripe down the middle because, like Miss Berry said, I reported a fire station that had a bad door every month for about 4 years while I was in charge of them. They never fixed it. That was Fire Station 70 a few months ago, or I guess a few years ago. The system failed. The door came down on a fireman coming out on the back of a fire truck, and he was off for 4 months. And they wouldn't spend money to fix a fire station door, Fire Station 15. Fireman injured himself closing it by hand. He's off for several weeks. It just goes on and on so far as mismanagement. You talk to the people who that know what's going on in personnel and in the Employment Relations Board, and the problem is lack of training and lack of enforcement of the rules. You don't hear about managers getting written up for improperly doing things. They demote people, they harass them. Myself, I was working nights alone on rooftops, putting in air conditioning filters, which is barely within my job classification. I'm supposed to be supervising a crew, but I was out there doing that because I complained about fraud at Water and Power. They bid the door for $3,800, this one company. The other one bid it for $32,000. They didn't take outside bid. They were just taking the outside company. And the $800 difference between what the one company bid and another company bid, where was that money going? My coworker that was in charge, he suddenly decided it was a good idea to retire while he still could because he saw an investigation coming. And anybody who opposes them, they try to get even with you. I've been getting even with for over 20 years with the Department of Water and Power because I cost them $40,000 in replacement of lights because one of the guy's co-workers said we couldn't see what we're doing, and this guy got killed because he couldn't see the split trim wasn't properly seated because of poor lighting. And he told Gary Sorenberger, the safety engineer, he says, Art, watch yourself, get out of here, they're going to get even with you. I got out of there. And they got even with me by dropping my pay 11% 8 months into my new job at Department of General Services in violation of a number of in violation of case law and statutory law. And we look at the issue of attorneys thing, as Ms. Berry brought up, which I brought before the City Council. The attorneys donate money to various city council people and or the city attorney. They get, I would imagine if you looked at the records, like Don Martin, the cartoonist's brother told me, he says, you go look in the back room, look at the records, and you'll find out where somebody's getting paid off, but nobody knows it except the person that looks in the records. And it creates more work. To quote Gordon Orlick, who had a simple slip and fall where the joint liability was between the property owner and the City of Los Angeles, he said the City of Los Angeles maybe jumped through 5 times the hoops that that the outside attorney did that represented the property owner, just on the aspect, just to make it hard to collect. And as the county went on, they settled a lot of cases out of court instead of paying attorneys for work that, the only question is how much. It's not a question of liability. And there's so many people that are incompetent, vindictive, and out rotten. But management is supposed to be doing something about them. We just had a new marriage executive director, number 12, on sexual harassment. but I don't think it's going to do any good. Dr. Charles Stewart applied for 70-something management aid positions with the city of Los Angeles. And he says, I'm gay, can I be reasonably sure that I'll be safe here? Nobody hired him. Now this is a guy with a doctorate, and the minimum requirements was 4 years of college. There's a lot of stuff to be done, but the only problem is nobody wants to do it because they're afraid of retribution. I have 32 years with the city, and they've been, they can't do much more to me than they've been doing. So we just hope we have some help to get this straightened up, because we direly need our tax dollars to keep the city going, instead of making Patricia Berry and a lot of other firms rich on behalf of ratepayers and taxpayers, because management won't clean up their act. It just is a real mess, and it needs to be totally done through. I don't know whether the grand jury would do anything about it. I've tried to get on there a few times, and they put out a directive back in 1993, don't encourage anybody in the city to go on the grand jury. I have it in paper sitting home in my files. Thank you.
Could I add, I don't know if those in this room, and perhaps those who will view what I'm saying, but ratepayers of the Department of Water and Power are trying to get an advocate for the ratepayers going. And all the Board of Commissioners did was bury it in some bureaucratic move where they'll do a committee to study the issue, to report to another committee of the City Council. And I think that an effective DWP ratepayer advocate has to be completely independent of City Council and of the Board of Commissioners. And I had the impression from attending the meeting where that was the principal topic of discussion, was that the Board of Commissioners and the City Council want total control over that advocate by having that advocate report to either the City Council or to the GM, the General Manager, now David Nahai, or the members or the President of the Board of Commissioners. That will, in effect, completely nullify what the goal of establishing such an office is, and that is the complete independence. And what comes to my mind, and hearing Art speak, is that we probably need an advocate even for the rest of the departments representing the interests of the taxpayers, which I think for those employees that are really operating or attempting to operate, like the gentleman here, under the principles of civil service is actually a win-win. There will be no conflict between the conscientious, honest civil servant and the taxpayer. It's getting them together. And one of the things I want to throw out here, and what came to my mind when I attended that meeting of the Board of Commissioners concerning the taxpayer or ratepayer advocate for DWP, is that I think we got to get something on the ballot as a proposition. And we create an office with a modest salary. You're not going to get rich on it, with benefits, and they have their own office, and they answer to nobody but us, the people. Otherwise, you completely nullify it, because we have this layer of corruption in which it's a runaway bureaucracy, because they feel they don't have to account. All they do is they run their election, and they get their money from the interested groups. Lots of lobbyists over there from the rich developers, and once they get their money to run the campaign, which basically puts out, knocks out anybody else who would make a good city council person or a good commissioner, they're basically knocked out because they're not tithing. They're not paying their campaign funds, donations, to these individuals who continually run. And so all we're getting are clones of the old guard. And it's very, very hard to make changes unless we the people, elect somebody who will truly represent the interests of the taxpayer and the civil